As a baseline, the regular Prius, it's going to already offer highly efficient transportation and a surprising bit of fun from behind the wheel. But we're here today to find out if this thing gets any better when you add in a bigger battery. So we've got the full testing results, including how far this thing goes on a single charge. We're going to tell you what it's like inside and out. And of course, we're going to cover if it's worth the extra money. So stick around, because I have a feeling this is one investment that might actually pay off. We're Edmunds, and we test hundreds of cars each year on the road and at our private track, so you get the most trusted reviews. If you want to know which car, truck, or SUV is the best, then stick with us. Now, if you want to learn more about the differences between a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid, good news, we've got a whole video on that exact subject. Check out the link in the description. But the gist of it is this. With a hybrid, you're only going to put in gasoline. With a plug-in hybrid, you're going to be able to add gas as well as electricity, and that is going to give you some upfront electric range that you can use before you use a drop of fuel. Now, as we mentioned before, that added feature, it's going to cost you some extra money. And here in the case of the Prius plug-in, it's going to cost about $35,000 to start, which is about $5,000 more than the regular Prius. In this Nightshade edition with a few options tacked on, it costs just over $41,000. But of course, what you'll pay depends on dealers in your area. And that's why at Edmunds, we've got tools that tell you what you should pay for a Prius plug-in or any other new car. Just scan the QR code or check out the links in the description. The Prius once had an earned reputation of being slow, but that's not true anymore. 60 miles per hour happens in just 7 seconds flat. That's 0.7 seconds quicker than the regular Prius, thanks to 26 extra horsepower. This hybrid hatchback has some real pep. The quarter mile still takes about 15 seconds, so most of the action is happening down low, but off the line, it's gonna feel jumpier than you might expect. The 0 to 60 mile per hour time is also quicker than the Honda Prelude, another hybrid we recently tested with some sportier intentions, and the Civic Si for that matter. Now, since this is a plug-in, we're gonna give you a bonus acceleration test, EV mode. That's the big difference between a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. This bad boy is gonna give you upfront electric range, an estimated 39 miles of it in fact. So with the battery fully juiced up, we sent it down our Excel straight on a quiet run, and it completed it in right around 11 seconds. Certainly slower, but there's still enough guts to get you around town pretty well and even get onto the highway, which makes sense given the 84 mile per hour top speed in EV mode. You heard me mention range earlier, and at Edmunds, we just can't help ourselves, so we had to test that out too. But we did this in a different way than our normal EV range test, because plug-in hybrids get used a bit differently and are most efficient in the city. So we went for a lower average speed, 35 miles per hour versus the usual 40, and using that methodology, the Prius plug-in blew well past its estimate and covered 51 miles. That should be more than enough to cover the daily needs of most folks, and even if it doesn't, that's still a lot of money you're saving on gas. When it comes to slowing down, the Prius plug-in takes 127 feet to stop from 60 to 0 miles per hour. That's a little bit longer than the regular Prius because it weighs about 300 pounds extra thanks to that larger battery. Under panic stops, the Prius felt pretty composed and stable without much wiggle from side to side or nosedive. However, that stopping distance is well past both of the Hondas we mentioned earlier. Around our 200-foot dry skid pad, the plug-in put up its worst showing with only 0.86 lateral G. Those skinny tires are good for efficiency, not as much for grip. That was worse than the Prius and the Prelude and the Civic Si by big margins. Still, we think when it comes to the most important numbers for this vehicle, the Prius plug-in, it was impressive. Now let's see how it feels from behind the wheel. Oh, sneaky amount of getaway in this thing. It even chirps the tires. So the Prius plug-in, it has 220 total horsepower, but 161 of those are actually coming from just the electric motor. So from behind the wheel, in some ways, it can feel a bit more like an EV than a hybrid in a good way. Now, acceleration is pretty smooth whether you're using hybrid or electric modes. And there is a button here right next to the driver that allows you to switch between the two modes when you want to, but if you don't want to think about it that much, just put it in auto mode, but that will default towards using more of the battery until that runs out. This thing is pretty comfortable. The ride quality is pretty good, and I actually like these front seats. The only thing is, this cabin, it can get a bit noisy. There's a fair amount of wind and tire noise, and if you really lean into the gas engine, the exhaust note, it's not what I would call desirable. Now, both the regular and plug-in versions of the Prius are going to offer more handling chops than you would expect. The steering, it is a bit numb, but otherwise, this chassis feels pretty good underneath me. And it's not quite fun enough to make you find the long way home on some sort of canyon road, but if you do find yourself on a road with some bends in it, it definitely won't embarrass itself. Now, like all hybrids, the Prius plug-in has to work to blend two braking systems. The physical brakes at the wheels and also the regenerative brakes, which help you to put energy back into that battery. And this is something that Toyota does quite well, and the Prius, it's no exception. It's really invisible to the driver when you're transitioning between these two systems, and that's exactly what you want. Oh man. The little traction control light is just going off every single corner. It's hilarious. Now, this car used to be known as the Prius Prime, but for 2026, they changed the name to Prius Plug-in. And in doing so, Toyota removed my ability to make millennial-coded Transformers jokes in this video. But what they also removed for 2026 is the charge mode. And that used to be a mode in which you could drive the vehicle to actually charge the battery actively. Now, this isn't something that we're going to miss too much because the gas engine, it was a lot less efficient when you were doing that, and it's probably better to just plug it in to put energy back in anyway. The nice thing though is that if you use it in its hybrid mode, it's still gonna hold your battery charge right where it is. So if you do wanna hold that electric range for where it's more efficient in the city, just boop that button and you're all good to go. And additionally, if you want to harvest more energy to put back into that battery, there's also this B driving mode here on the shifter stalk with 3 different levels of regen. That's just going to prioritize the regenerative braking a little bit more and allow you to add energy back into the battery. The only downside to that mode is you actually can't use it when you're using the adaptive cruise control, which is a little bit weird because there's plenty of other cars out there that allow you to do so. It just feels like a bit of an oversight from Toyota. Speaking of driver aids, you're getting a ton of them here, standard. So you're getting lane keep assist, blind spot warnings, adaptive cruise control, and even traffic jam assist, which allows you to drive hands-free on the highway at speeds under 25 miles per hour, as well as automatic high beams. I do have to say though, that for such a small vehicle, visibility is actually kind of poor. Because of the way the hood slopes down for aerodynamics, I actually can't see where the nose of this car is, and the back glass, it's super thin and kind of hard to see out of as well. There is an XSE premium trim level above this one, and that will give you a surround view camera as well as a rear view camera mirror, and those are 2 features that I definitely wish I had here in the Nightshade. And yes, Nightshade is a weird trim name for something that you're seeing in this color. Now this paint color is actually called Karashi, which in Japanese means mustard, which reminds me a lot of Kendrick Lamar. Mustard! This generation of the Prius got a serious glow up. It doesn't resemble the previous generations of this car at all, which were notoriously ugly. But it has kept that wedge-like shape, which makes this thing ultra aerodynamic, so it slips through the air to give you great efficiency. Now this Nightshade trim is new for 2026, and this is how you get those black mirror caps, black door handles, black bumper trim, and those 19-inch alloy wheels finished in green. Just kidding. So while the Prius might no longer be an ugly duckling, that newfound sense of style, it has come with a few compromises. Oh, that hurt. One of them being headroom. This sexy new shape tapers the roofline down as it goes back, and that means anyone who is 6 feet tall and over, they're definitely going to be wishing for more space this way. Now, legroom is okay, but the smallish door openings and the lack of vertical space make installing a child safety seat hard, and if you have a rear-facing car seat, you're certainly going to have to be moving the passenger seat forward to get it to fit. There also aren't any air vents back here, which is sad because the old Prius used to have them, but there are 2 USB-C charging ports and a household outlet. And in fact, charging is a strong point in this vehicle because you're getting 6 USB-C ports overall, and that's more plugins for devices than seats for people. Today, we're just covering the highs and lows, but if you want more details on the Prius plug-in or any other new car, head over to our site. That's where we've got our full ratings, rankings, and reviews, and where we can really nerd out on all the tiny little details. Now, up front, room is better because this roof doesn't begin to slope down until you get behind me, and these seats, they are plenty supportive and comfortable, which is great because between the electric range and a full tank of gas, you can go 450 miles between fill-ups in the Prius plug-in. This Nightshade comes with the optional 12.3-inch screen, and we're glad that it does because the standard 8-inch screen, it still has a big housing around it, and it feels rather tiny. This infotainment system is one that we're very familiar with, and it's all right. It doesn't have a ton of functionality, but we do like that in the native navigation, its destinations are powered by Google, so you're always getting up-to-date hours, ratings, reviews, stuff like that right here natively. However, I would say that most of the time, we just use our phones and take advantage of the wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Now, speaking of wireless, there's also a charging pad right here, and I really like the placement of it and that it's vertical because it does a great job of holding your phone so it doesn't slide around. The bad part is this slot, it doesn't feature any ventilation. So if you leave your phone in there for too long, it's gonna get real hot. Now, there is one thing about this interior that bothers me more than anything else, and it's this digital instrument cluster. Placed up here on top of the dash, it's actually blocked by the top of the steering wheel for most drivers. So in order to see it, to tell how fast you're going, you have to lower the wheel like this. But with the wheel lowered like that, driving with your hands in your lap, it isn't all that comfortable, so you end up putting a hand on top of the wheel. But then if you put your hand on top of the wheel, it blocks the driver attention monitor, which is right here, and then the car yells at you that it can't see your face, and it's all just very annoying all the time. On top of that, even if you can see the display, it does a really poor job of showing information. You see all these little icons all around. It's just very cluttered, and especially when you're driving, it's hard to tell what you're looking at. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe I just won't interact with this screen at all, but unfortunately, that's also not an option because if you want to adjust many of the safety features, you actually have to do it through this screen using the steering wheel controls. You can't do it through the main screen at all. And if you remember, the different regenerative braking settings in order to put energy back into that battery, if you want to change that, that's normally a button on other vehicles, but here you have to dig through the menus, you have to go all the way down here, you have to hit this button 3 or 4 times to get there even, and then switching through it, it's not really all that intuitive. Now, this is the same setup that you're getting in the Toyota Prius and also in the BZ, and in all those instances, it's just bad. The small back seat is matched by an also small cargo area. Now, don't let this lift gate fool you. There isn't that much room back here, just 20.3 cubic feet of the stuff. But at least you aren't losing out on any cargo room versus the regular Prius. And it's way too skinny. You can't even fit a set of golf clubs back here, while on the old Prius, you could fit 2 or 3 sets with ease. Yes, this thing is better looking now, but with what you're giving up in the back seat in the cargo area, I'm not sure it was worth it. Before we get into value, which is extra important for this vehicle, and wrap things up, if you've been enjoying our videos and find them helpful, the best way to help us out is a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about the Prius Prime or an idea of what car we should fully test next, let us know in the comments below. We do read them all. So the Prius plug-in, it's going to offer you extra power and extra juice versus the regular Prius. That is undeniable. But if you're trying to pick between these two vehicles or between a plug-in hybrid and a regular hybrid in general, it's going to boil down more to how you're going to use them. In order to make it worth it, you have to take advantage of that electric range. And here in the Prius plug-in, the good news is that it uses its energy really efficiently. The battery in this vehicle, it's only 13.5 kilowatt hours large, with an even lower number than that usable because it always keeps some energy behind so it can still drive as a hybrid even when you're out of all electric range. And that means that you can charge it from 0 to full in just 11 hours on a regular household outlet. You don't need to go through the headache and added cost of a level 2 home charger to fully take advantage of this vehicle's capabilities. Now, the regular Prius, it is an efficiency king. The Nightshade front-wheel drive version of the standard Prius, it's going to get just over 50 mpg combined. So, if you assume that you drive 10,000 miles a year at national average fuel prices, it'll cost you just under $900 a year on gas. And that means to make up the price difference between these two vehicles, it would take you about 5.5 years. And that's making the wild assumption that you won't use any gas at all with the plug-in version. So any miles that you drive in hybrid mode, they're just going to make that time frame even longer. And it's probably more realistic to think it will take 6 or even 7 years to make up the price difference between the two vehicles on fuel costs alone. Now that time will become shorter the more miles that you drive, or if gas prices keep going up, which we hope they won't. Now, is that all worth it to you? That's something that you'll have to figure out given how you use your current vehicle. But just remember, the longer that you own one of these and the more miles that you can drive using that electric range, the more the math will work out in your favor. Now, we also think that the Prius plug-in also serves as a great entryway for people who are considering an EV, but are perhaps worried about having an electric vehicle as their only vehicle, or they don't have access to level 2 home charging. This is going to give you most of the electric vehicle experience, but with the added bonus of being able to go on a long trip without having to worry about range at all, because you can just fill it up at the pump along the way. We think that plug-in hybrids as a whole are a very underutilized segment of the automotive population, and they think that many consumers would be well served by considering buying one. And you also get the added bonus of being in a Prius plug-in, looking at all the regular hybrids around you and thinking to yourself, they are not like us. Thanks for watching.